A demented old man drank water from an air conditioner. I couldn't stop him in time, and he ended up in a vegetative state. The old man's son, in turn, accused me of poisoning his father. They extorted me until I lost my job, went bankrupt, and was finally pushed off a rooftop. I was reborn at the moment the old man was collecting the air conditioner water with a cup. I lowered my head and walked past, not sparing him a single glance. But the old man grabbed me, asking with a vacant look in his eyes, "Hey, is this water drinkable?" Blinking with crossed eyes, I asked back in feigned surprise, "What? You want to eat poop?" I tilted my head, looking at the old man with my eyes crossed. The old man's face twitched for a moment, but he quickly returned to normal. "Young man, I'm old, my mind is muddled. I'm dying of thirst. I'm just asking if this water is drinkable." As he spoke, he tried to shove the cup into my hand. In my past life, I snatched the cup from his hand, and because of that one action, his son was able to blackmail me. He claimed I had poisoned his father. This time, how could I fall into the same trap? And this time, observing the old man's eyes up close, I realized this old fellow wasn't muddled at all, much less suffering from the senile dementia his son claimed. Otherwise, he wouldn't have deliberately stopped me to ask. He was teaming up with his son to extort me. I immediately threw my hands up above my head and shouted, "Captain, don't shoot, it's me." The old man was stunned again. "Young man, what are you saying? Just reach out your hand. Quick, help me see if this water is drinkable. I'm dying of thirst." I immediately put on a fawning smile. The Shiba Inu army asked me to pass on a message. As long as you surrender your weapon, there will be more than enough dog poop for you. Helpless, the old man was too short. He stood on his tiptoes, desperately trying to reach my hand, but couldn't. Seeing that I wasn't taking the bait, the old man threw himself on the ground. I'm dying of thirst. Water." The cup was right next to him. His wails were finally heard by a passerby. A female white-collar worker hurried over. "Sir, are you thirsty? Let me get you some water." "Okay." The old man opened his eyes a crack. Seeing the person's attire, his eyes instantly lit up. He tremblingly pointed to the cup beside him. "Water." The white-collar woman was about to pick up the cup of water for the old man. I shouted loudly, "Watch out, there's a landmine." I kicked the cup of air conditioner water away. The cup smashed against the wall into pieces, and the water splashed all over the ground. The white-collar woman jumped in fright. "Are you insane? The old man is so thirsty. Why did you kick the water away?" I chuckled, my eyes still crossed, and adopted a horse-riding posture. White dragon horse, with hooves facing west, carrying the Monk Tang Sanzang. I gradually sped up and ran off. This old man was someone you couldn't get involved with at all. Besides, in my past life, his son was watching from not far away. If you got even slightly involved, they would suck you dry. The old man watched me run away, shouting tremblingly that I couldn't leave, but I turned a deaf ear. Just as I was about to succeed, the old man's son jumped out from around a corner and blocked my path. "You can't leave. My dad drank your water, and now he's collapsed." "Wait, that's not right. In my past life, he wasn't hiding here. This guy must have seen which way I was running and circled around to intercept me. He was quite far from the old man, so he probably didn't see clearly what happened, only that the old man had fallen down. So he immediately came out to extort me. Hearing him use the exact same words as in my past life, I wished I could tear the man in front of me to pieces. But having been through life and death, I had learned one thing. Playing dumb can solve a lot of problems. You can't play by a scumbag's rules. My crossed eyes became even more focused. Looking at the old man's son, I threw myself on the ground. "I don't have a son like you." The old man's son was a bit stunned. "Who the fuck are you cursing at?" "I'm saying you harmed my dad." I hugged his leg. "Good son, you must avenge me. Beat that old man to death." The old man's son looked at my crossed eyes, his skin crawling, and shook me off in disgust, as if flicking away a booger. The report didn't say he was a psycho. He muttered to himself. In my past life, it was only after being extorted that I learned the father and son had targeted me long ago. They had even followed me for several days before the scam, mainly because I worked at a company with great benefits, the kind you couldn't get into no matter how hard you tried. I had some money and a sense of dignity, which made me a particularly easy target for extortion. My acting foolish now is just a stopgap measure. First, I have to get rid of them, then I can figure out a plan. Just then, The old man's shouts caught his attention. I looked back and saw the old man holding a bottle of mineral water, pulling on the skirt of the white-collar woman from before, shouting that the water she gave him was tainted and that she had bad intentions. The woman clutched her skirt while desperately trying to explain. Her pretty face was flushed red with frustration. Sigh, I can save you once, but I can't save you a second time. You're on your own. The old man's son said to me viciously. You can't leave. I'll beat you to death if you dare. Then he ran towards the old man, looking back every 3 steps. Not leave. Only a fool wouldn't leave. I hailed a cab. In the rearview mirror, I saw the old man's son chase for a couple of steps, then stand there cursing wildly. Only then did I relax. Back home, I quickly packed my things. I couldn't live here anymore. In my past life, they found this place easily, having already figured out my home and company addresses. I told the company's finance lady that my house was flooded, and then rented the cheapest apartment in a nearby hotel. The company provided a subsidy. To be fair, the company benefits were indeed good. Otherwise, in my past life, I wouldn't have been extorted so miserably by the old man's family just to keep my job. The money was gone, the job was gone, and in the end, my life was gone too. The old man and his son were professional extortionists, a father-son team on the battlefield. Using the old man as bait, their main goal was to extort money, with extorting people as a secondary objective. Some might say, isn't extorting people the same as extorting money? No. The old man's son once deliberately extorted a young woman who had just graduated and found a job. He found out that the young woman had sick parents at home and a younger brother still in school. So he had his father go and extort her for money. But the young woman had no money, so the old man's son proposed that she sleep with him. To keep her job, for her parents and brother, the young woman had to compromise. However, not only did the old man and his son take advantage of her, they also recorded a video of her. They used the video to threaten her, forcing her to give them half of her salary every month. Otherwise, they would invite her parents and brother to enjoy the show. 3 months later, the young woman completely broke down. Her family, dressed in tattered clothes, took her back to her hometown. It's said that she's still on a lot of medication to this day. The young woman's family, afraid of the old man and his son's harassment, and even more afraid of the video leaking, did not report it to the police. This father-son duo had no bottom line, so after being reborn, I absolutely could not sit back and wait for death. So I went to a computer store, bought a smart doorbell with a camera, and installed it on my door before leaving. That night, as I lay in the apartment bed planning how to deal with the old man and his son, an alert from the smart doorbell popped up on my phone. The old man's son's ferocious face was pressed tightly against my doorbell's peephole camera. He was pounding on the door. You bastard. You think you can get away with it by running? My dad had a heart attack from thirst because he didn't get any water. Get out here now. I need to talk to you about compensation. Seeing no response, he started kicking the door. Fine, play dead, right? I know where you live, and I know your company. You can run, but you can't hide. After banging on the door for half an hour, he finally left. Neighbors to the left and right, upstairs and downstairs, no one came out to inquire. After all, no one wants to mess with people like that. But some things you can't just endure and expect them to go away. Seeing that I remained silent, the old man's son had the old man come over, trembling and leaning on a cane. He knocked on every door, asking with vacant eyes if I was home. Some neighbors, wanting him to leave quickly, told him my apartment number. The old man expressed his gratitude, then went to knock on the door opposite mine, but not mine. Everyone finally realized something was off. Someone gossipily asked the old man what he wanted with me. The old man then told them how I had harmed him. Some neighbors gloated, while others quickly closed their doors and told him to leave. Those who were gloating continued to ask the old man for details. The old man said he was thirsty and asked the neighbor for a drink of water. The moment the old man took a sip, he fell to the ground. He extorted over 2,000 yuan. After that, no one dared to open their door for him anymore, avoiding him like the plague. The old man, however, enjoyed it, knocking on doors one by one. Finally, a neighbor couldn't take it anymore and messaged me in the group chat, telling me to handle it quickly and not to disturb everyone. I continued to lurk, not making a sound no matter how many times they ID me. The old man is knocking on your doors. What does that have to do with me? If you're not happy, call the police. If you don't like it, curse at him. You're a bunch of cowards yourselves. You know he's trouble, so you want me to go out and be the shield? What a joke. Usually, when these neighborhood Annies stole my food deliveries, they showed no mercy, even claiming they found it upstairs and took it home to feed their dogs. It's good to have the old man teach you a lesson on how to be a decent human being. Lying in the apartment, the immense fatigue of my past and present lives washed over me, and I gradually fell asleep. I slept until dawn and was almost late for work. I knew the old man and his son would come to the company to cause trouble today. In my past life, I was unprepared and kept giving in and compromising, which only made them more aggressive. I thought I was important to the company, but when trouble arose, the company was the first to kick me out to sever ties. In my past life, my salary and position at the company were quite good, and I had already saved over $2 million. It was because I was unwilling to give up this high-paying job, being so hesitant and indecisive that the old man was able to push his luck. This time, I didn't care about all that anymore. After all, my current savings were enough to last me a long time. Just as the front desk girl called to tell me someone was downstairs making a scene and looking for me, I went down magnanimously. The moment the old man's son saw me, he was about to rush over and grab my collar. I grabbed his hand and twisted it. Self-defense. He howled in pain. Fine, you can pay for my hand too, he said through gritted teeth. Let me tell you, first give me 100,000 yuan for my dad's medical bills, or I'll make sure you lose your job. I spread my hands. Oh, thank you so much. The old man's son was stunned. I said, I'll make you lose your job. I gave him a salute. Then I'm counting on you. The old man's son was dumbfounded for several seconds, then suddenly erupted in anger. Don't you try to be clever. You dare to say you don't want such a good job? I sighed. Isn't that the truth? I've had enough of being a workhorse. As long as you can get the company to fire me, I'll give you 50 yuan once I get the compensation. The old man's son narrowed his eyes. How much compensation can you get? About 800,000. His eyes widened. You get 800,000, and you only give me 50 yuan? I chuckled. I'm not your dad. Is 50 yuan too little for you? The old man's son finally realized I was messing with him and pulled a banner from his bag. I'll give you one last chance. If you don't pay, you'll face the consequences. I had already taken out my phone and started recording. Please begin your performance. The old man's son sat on the ground. Everyone, come and see. Is there a leader here who can give me justice? His tactic was effective, and a crowd quickly gathered. The old man, leaning unsteadily on a cane, tremblingly laid down in front of his son. The father and son duo, one responsible for shouting and the other for groaning, managed to attract the head of public relations. Seeing a manager arrive, the old man's son burst into tears and snot, wiping them all over the PR head's trouser leg. The PR head then called down the head of human resources. The two of them reprimanded me, telling me to handle it quickly, pay what I should, and not to damage the company's image. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to come to work anymore. I immediately stated that I would handle it right away and would absolutely not affect the company's future development. Then I turned around and called the police. What does the company's development have to do with me? The two department heads were dumbfounded. After the police persuaded the father and son to leave, the PR head questioned me. Why did you call the police? What if they come back? When people see a police car at the company, do you know how much that affects the company's image? I spread my hands. You told me to resolve it quickly. Tell me, was I not quick? The PR head was about to jump out of his skin. I told you to resolve it completely, not to drink poison to quench your thirst. I asked in confusion, so I should have paid them? He waved his hands dismissively. I never said that. Anyway, you must completely resolve this matter. I gave a salute and readily agreed. When the old man and his son came back with the banner the next day, I called the police again. The third day, the fourth day. I felt very sorry for the police officers. It just gave me a wry smile whenever they saw me. Finally, the story spread online. The big boss found out and was furious. He gave the PR and HR heads a severe scolding and demanded they rectify the situation within 3 days. Rectify what? Of course, rectify me. The HR head had a talk with me, wanting me to resign voluntarily. I pulled out the labor law. I stated that I hadn't violated any company regulations and, moreover, I was the victim of an extortion attempt. No matter how he threatened or cajoled, I stood my ground. I wouldn't resign. Either fire me and pay compensation, or we could just keep dragging this out. In my last life, when you had security take me to the rooftop to negotiate with the old man's son, you never once considered my life or death. After I was pushed off and fell to my death, the company would rather spend a fortune to suppress the news and delete headlines than to give a single cent for my burial. In this life, how could I possibly let you off so easily? With the old man's son causing a scene at the company every day, the company revoked my key card access. I kept the evidence and rented a small apartment across the street, which happened to have a view of the company entrance. The old man and his son continued to pull up their banner at the company entrance. The PR head came out and said something to them, even handing the son a piece of paper. The son immediately took out his phone and dialed the number on the paper. Over on my end, a call from an unknown number came in. "You little brat, you got fired? What about the compensation? Hand over all the compensation money." I answered in a puzzled tone. "How could that be? I'm at work. Aren't you right downstairs from my company? Isn't the old man picking his nose right now?" The son glanced at his father and was 80% convinced. I advised him, "It must have been that manager you saw the other day who came up with this idea to trick you into leaving." The old man's son hung up the phone and started cursing loudly. I didn't call the police this time. It wasn't me he was cursing at anyway. But the managers couldn't sit still anymore. The head of PR personally stepped in, only to get a face full of spit from the old man's son. The head of HR was pulled down and explained that I had indeed been fired. The old man's son didn't believe it and asked how much severance I was given. The head of HR stammered, unable to answer. The PR head, thinking on his feet, blurted out $1 million and told the old man to get the money from me. The old man's son called me on the spot to question me. I told him, have them write me a receipt stating that the $1 million in severance has already been paid to me. As soon as they heard about writing a receipt, the two bosses chickened out. Neither dared to write it. The son saw he'd been tricked again. He pulled up his father, and each of them grabbed one of the boss's legs and wouldn't let go. One claimed his heart was bothering him. The other said his head ached. The two bosses' custom-tailored suits were smeared with dirty handprints. The HR head's pants were torn open in a large rip, revealing his red underwear. The scene was quite a spectacle. I sat before the floor-to-ceiling window of the apartment across the street, watching the show through the high-powered telephoto lens of my new phone. Sunflower seed shells littered the floor around me. This is what you call a new, reborn life. Soon, the PR head called me, accusing me of sending people to cause trouble at the company. He said if I didn't get them to leave, the company would call the police and have me arrested along with them. My tone was firm. "You must call the police. We have to fight this kind of disturbance of public order to the very end." I hung up as soon as I finished speaking. Through my lens, I could see the PR head angrily slam his phone down. The phone bounced up and hit the old man on the head. The old man trembled and fainted. The old man's son wailed and cried, but he didn't call for an ambulance. In the end, after some intense bargaining, the PR head went to a nearby bank and withdrew several stacks of cash. After getting the money, the son woke his father up, and the pair finally packed it in and went home. The PR head called me immediately. "Xiaoji, I've temporarily settled today's matter for you. I paid the old man 30,000 yuan on your behalf. Just transfer it to me on WeChat." I readily agreed. "No problem. I'll send it right away." I could hear him beaming through the phone. Then, I put down my phone and sent him a Mahjong 30,000 emoji sticker. "Please accept it with a smile." The PR head started calling me frantically. I muted my phone and began to think about my next strategy. How the old man and his son had found me was a problem. Just as my head was starting to ache from thinking, my auntie from my hometown sent me a message. "Xiaoji, have you thought about it? Your nephew is about to register for school. Don't hold the child up. That's a responsibility you can't bear. Don't forget I brought you peaches to eat in high school." Only then did I remember that since my rebirth, I hadn't had a chance to deal with my auntie's matter. Back then, this auntie, with whom I hadn't had contact for years, had messaged me asking where I worked and in which complex I had bought my apartment. She said she wanted to come visit me. As we chatted, I found out she had her eyes on my apartment school district and wanted me to transfer the deed to my cousin, so that her grandson could attend the city's elementary school. She didn't mention a word about money. This cousin, I had only met once as a child. After my cousin added me on WeChat, he told me that after the transfer, the apartment would be his. He wanted me to pay rent, and when the rent accumulated to the value of the apartment, he would transfer the money back to me in one lump sum. Trying to pull a fast one on me? My cousin was in his 30s, still living off his parents, a regular at the detention center. Could he ever pay me back? I just pretended they didn't exist. Later, after I got entangled with the old man and his son, I paid her family no mind. Now, my auntie was messaging me again, once more bringing up the peaches she gave me in high school. Over and over, that was the only thing she had to hold over me. I was just worrying about who could deal with the old man, and here they were, delivering themselves to my doorstep. I sent my auntie a message. Someone has taken an interest in my apartment recently. They said it has good feng shui and offered me $3 million. They're waiting in my home and my company every day, trying to shove a down payment at me. My auntie was half believing, half doubting. I muted the video of the old man's son's face pressed against my doorbell camera and sent it to my auntie. My auntie couldn't sit still anymore. Xiaoji, you can't sell to them. We're relatives. I said I was afraid they would attack me and that I couldn't get rid of them. I then sent her a clipped video of the old man's son blocking me at the company entrance. In the clipped video, the old man's son was shouting at me, "I'll give you 800,000. When my auntie saw that, she nearly jumped up. "You just wait. Your cousin and I will go help you tomorrow." The next day, the first thing my cousin said when he saw me was, "Who the hell is after my house?" I looked at his half-bleached hair and felt he had just the right vibe. I couldn't suppress the smirk at the corner of my mouth. After all, it takes a villain to deal with a villain. I went to the company with my cousin and auntie, telling them to hide at a distance while I went to talk to the old man's son, who was holding a banner. When the old man's son saw me approaching, he lunged forward to grab me. I dodged and said, "If all else fails, how about I just compensate you with my apartment?" The old man's son's eyes lit up. I woke up the old man, who was lying there pretending to be unconscious. I gestured to my cousin behind my back, telling him to come over. You have to put it in writing," the old man stammered. The old man's son slapped his thigh. "No, we're transferring the property now." My cousin had already walked up behind me. Hearing this, he sent a flying kick into the son's thigh. "Who the fuck are you telling to transfer the property?" Ow! The old man's son was rolling on the ground. I made a tactical retreat, leaving the battlefield. The old man raised his cane to hit my cousin. My aunt rushed up, snatched the old man's cane, and cursed, "Look at you, so old there's nothing left but your head, and you still want to live in a new house? How about I give you a cinerary casket to live in?" The old man saw my aunt's fierce expression and plain clothes and knew she was the type who was both tough to mess with and hard to extort money from. If this continued, it was uncertain who would be extorting whom. So the old man erupted with his strongest fighting power. He wasn't trembling anymore. He jumped up and started hitting my aunt's scalp. My aunt grabbed the soft flesh on the old man's chest and wouldn't let go. So the old man pulled at what little hair my aunt had left. Finally, a passerby called the police, ending the 2v2 match. It ended in a complete victory for my aunt and cousin. The old man and his son both ended up in the hospital. They demanded my aunt and cousin pay compensation, but my aunt's family had total assets of no more than 5,000 yuan. Where would they get the money to pay? My cousin, familiar with the routine, went in. My aunt told me that as soon as my cousin got out, we should hurry and transfer the property to avoid any future complications. I readily agreed. My aunt was happy and wanted to go live in the new house that very night to get used to it ahead of time. I cheerfully gave her the keys. I went back to my rented apartment. Then, in the middle of the night, I sent a message to the old man's son, telling him my relatives had occupied my house tonight, so I couldn't compensate him with it. The old man and his son were miraculously cured and discharged from the hospital that same night. And in the early hours of the morning, they were banging on my door. My aunt was home alone and got scared. She called me, but I put my phone on silent. I was busy watching the home security camera footage. How could I have time to answer a call? On the monitor, I saw my aunt in my house, anxious like an ant on a hot pan. The shouting of the old man and his son at the door grew louder and louder. They yelled all sorts of nasty things. At first, my aunt yelled back, but then she realized she couldn't win a 2-against-1 shouting match and didn't dare open the door. So my aunt called the police. The old man was persuaded to leave, but he came back a short while later. My aunt called the police again. The old man came back again. This went on for the entire night. Only then did the old man and his son go back to sleep. I happened to come home at that moment to pick something up, and I saw my aunt's pale face and dark circles under her eyes. I asked with concern what was wrong, if she wasn't comfortable in the new house. My aunt was clearly traumatized. She didn't dare to live there anymore and took a bus back to her hometown that same day. So when the old man returned after a full night's sleep, there was no one home. So the old man and his son moved the battle to my company, vowing not to stop until they got compensation from me. The big boss couldn't take it anymore and specially approved a compensation plan. Because it was an illegal termination, the severance pay was much higher. I heard that because of this incident, the year-end bonuses for the HR department and the head of PR were gone. I signed the papers cheerfully and received nearly $1 million. In my past life, you forced me onto the rooftop and let me be killed by the old man's son. How could I let you off so easily in this life? So, even though I was fired, I still went to the company lobby to clock in every day, mainly because I had such deep feelings for the company. The old man and his son also came to block me every day, and they turned a deaf ear to the explanations from the head of PR. The area downstairs from the company gradually became a popular spot for internet celebrities to check in. The big boss was so anxious he almost lost half his hair, until the head of PR printed out the company's financial records to show them, proving that I had indeed received the severance pay. The old man's son's eyes were as red as a wild rabbit's. In the bustling company lobby, he rolled up his sleeves to hit me. I pointed to the security camera above. He deflated. "You won't pay? Believe it or not, I'll..." He couldn't finish because I didn't have the job anymore. "Believe it or not, I'll sue you in court." Playing with my phone, I said nonchalantly, "Go ahead and file the case. I have nothing but time now." Would he really file a case? It's like a wild dog asking for food at a dog meat restaurant. In my past life, he had leverage over me because of my job. Now, he was completely at a loss. Seeing my indifferent attitude, his eyes flickered, and he looked like he was about to back down. Just then, the old man climbed up from the ground, pointed a trembling finger at me, and said, "I know where your parents live. I'll go have a talk with them." The old man's son slapped his thigh. "Right, your parents are still around, aren't they? You just wait." Seeing my expression turn serious, the old man's son became even more arrogant. "Scared, huh? If you're scared, then just obediently." I suddenly grabbed his shoulders with both hands. "My good brother, if you can find my parents, I'll thank your ancestors for 8 generations. After they divorced, I haven't seen them in over a decade." The old man and his son were dumbfounded. I've been surviving on my own since middle school. After my parents divorced, they gave me some money at first, but after they each started new families, I lost contact with them. I got by on odd jobs to survive and finish my education. That's why my aunt brought up that one time she gave me peaches for so many years. Later, when she saw I was a bottomless pit, she stopped contacting me altogether. Fortunately, I was determined enough to buy a house and save up some money. And I even got to live a second time. Seeing that he couldn't threaten me with my parents, my uncle clutched his chest and lay down again. His son hugged him, wailing, and threatened me not to leave. Just then, my aunt sent me a WeChat message saying my cousin was getting out tomorrow and telling me to prepare the property transfer documents immediately. Otherwise, my cousin would move into my house and refuse to leave. I looked at the son wailing on the floor, and the left corner of my mouth curled into a smirk. When my cousin knocked on my door, the uncle's son and I were having tea inside. I had him continue to play the role of the client buying my house. If he helped me drive away this blood-sucking relative, I would sell him the house at a super low price. The uncle's son readily agreed. You have to understand, my house is worth over $2 million on the market. If he flipped it, he'd make a huge profit. So he was extremely cooperative. When my cousin saw the uncle's son sitting in my home, he raised an eyebrow. "What are you doing in my house?" The uncle's son slapped a contract down on the table. "It's my house now. The contract is already signed." My cousin started screaming at me. "Xiao Ji, you ungrateful son of a bitch. My mom was so good to you. She even brought you peaches when no one else cared for you. And this is how you repay us." I spread my hands and said with a wry smile, "Cousin, why don't you take a look in the bedroom? I was forced into this too." He kicked the bedroom door open. The uncle was lying in bed, hooked up to a bunch of tubes, playing on his phone. Hearing the noise, he quickly threw his phone aside and began to moan softly. My cousin was furious and kicked the uncle off the bed. When the uncle saw it was this punk again, he didn't try to scam him, just swung his cane and started hitting. The uncle's son was not to be outdone. He had been sucker punched by my cousin last time, got beaten up pretty badly, and never got any compensation. This time, he went all out. The father and son duo teamed up, fighting my cousin to a standstill. I was on the balcony, recording a video. I had already moved out all my valuables. The current furniture wasn't worth much, even if it was all smashed. Unexpectedly, after being in jail for a few days, my cousin's fighting ability hadn't diminished at all. He held the uncle's head with one hand and grabbed the son's hair with the other, yelling for me to come and help. I pretended I couldn't hear him clearly and told him to shout louder. Anyway, I didn't move an inch. It was so nice on the balcony, the air was fresh. The three of them fought for half an hour before sitting on the floor, panting to rest. As they rested, they kept cursing at each other. Each claimed the house was his. Meanwhile, the real estate agent had already sent me a message. He said he had found a buyer for my house who perfectly met my requirements. It was the boss of a security company buying a small home for himself. Of course, I had told the agent about all the trouble associated with this house. The agent said that for the buyer, these little problems of mine were nothing. Of course, I had also shown some sincerity in the price. At this moment, my cousin and the father-son duo were still arguing about the ownership of the house. The uncle's son, having learned from his mistake, said he needed a drink of water before continuing the fight, and went to the kitchen to grab a handful of salt. The uncle understood immediately, clutched his chest, and lay down. With this distraction, the uncle's son launched a sneak attack, smearing the handful of salt all over my cousin's eyes. Amidst agonizing screams, my cousin completely lost his ability to fight. He was rolling on the ground. The uncle jumped up, swinging his cane, and jabbed fiercely in my cousin's vital spots. My cousin's eyes were swollen like peaches. After about 10 minutes of this, the father and son were both tired. My cousin struggled to his feet and spat. "You want to play dirty, huh? Just you wait. I've got people who specialize in dealing with guys like you." Saying this, he pulled out his phone. "Brother Long, where are those two scoundrels you found for me? Send me their number. I need them to come help right now." The uncle and his son were about to slip away, but were blocked at the door by my cousin. "You two wait right there. I'm calling people to deal with you now." Ding. After receiving the contact information, my cousin immediately dialed the number. And then the uncle's son's phone rang. My cousin's peach-like eyes and the uncle's son's dumbfounded eyes met in the silent air. It was as if a crow cawed hoarsely as it flew by. My cousin's voice was hollow. "Are you the two scoundrels Brother Long found?" The uncle's son roared. "Who the hell are you calling a scoundrel?" On the balcony, my face darkened. I had always wondered why the uncle had targeted me. Not only did he know where I lived, but he also knew where I worked. Moreover, the moment I was reborn this time, I distinctly felt that the uncle was pretending to collect water from the air conditioner while intentionally waiting for me to pass by. When I ignored him, he even came up and grabbed me. To say that no one was behind this series of premeditated actions, it would have been difficult for the old man and his son to be so stable, precise, and ruthless. Now, I finally understood. The one behind the old man and his son was my cousin. He and my aunt saw that I wouldn't budge on a house issue. So they found professional extortionists to mess with me, to swindle my house away, wanting to get something for nothing. It's just that I never expected that the father and son duo I had fought with twice were the professional extortionists he had hired. I pretended not to hear, feigning a phone call on the balcony. When I turned back, my cousin and the old man were gone. I contacted a real estate agent and sold the house as quickly as possible. I didn't move a single thing in the house, because I knew my aunt had secretly made a copy of my key. At this point, with my original savings, the company's compensation, and the money from the house sale, I had accumulated a considerable amount of assets. Therefore, as long as I didn't have to care about anything, no one could make me care about anything. I still moved into the apartment building across from my company, but I switched to a different floor. Although I no longer had the company's subsidy, I had money. Soon, my cousin called me, acting as if nothing had happened. "Xiaoji, I know you're in trouble. As your cousin, for the sake of family, I can help you out. I'll take care of those two scoundrels for you, and you transfer the house to me. Otherwise, your house will be scammed away by them sooner or later. I said in a troubled tone, but that house. My cousin interrupted me. I told you I'll solve your problems, including that house. I said earnestly. I advise you not to even think about that house, or the consequences will be unimaginable. My cousin exploded. Xiaoji, I gave you a chance, and you didn't take it. So don't blame me. You're giving me this house, whether you want to or not. He hung up after saying that. That night, he and my aunt opened the door and moved in. I hadn't removed the security camera yet, so I saw everything clearly. He changed the door lock directly, but this house no longer belonged to me. The next day, the buyer of my house, the big brother from the security company, brought a dozen of his men in black suits to move in. As it turned out, my key wouldn't open the door. My cousin cursed from inside. What the hell are you doing so early in the morning? Hearing this, the big brother immediately ordered two of his men, and with crowbars and axes, they broke down the door in a minute. My aunt and cousin were originally each holding a kitchen knife, ready to defend their property. But then, a dozen burly men in black suits poured in from the doorway. My cousin started trembling on the spot. My aunt said with a stiff upper lip, "This is my house. You're trespassing. I'm calling the police." The security company big brother slammed the newly issued property deed on the table. "Are you leaving on your own? Or do you need my help?" My aunt sat on the floor and wailed. My cousin was as scared as a quail, not daring to make a peep. Finally, the big brother had a few of his men take down the curtains, wrap my aunt and cousin in them, carry them out, and throw them downstairs. Only then did my cousin act tough. "You just wait. I'm going to find people to deal with you." With that, he made a phone call, and the old man and his son arrived on an electric tricycle. My cousin told them to use every trick they had, vowing to drive the people upstairs away. When the old man and his son saw the several Mercedes-Benzes downstairs, they refused to go up no matter what. They also knew who not to mess with. "We've been working for you for so long, and you haven't even given us a deposit." My cousin gave him the only 3,000 yuan he had on him and promised to double the reward. Only then did the old man pull out his crutch and go upstairs, trembling. The old man sat on the threshold of my former house, blocking the door and preventing them from moving. He said this family owed him money, and if he didn't see the money, no one could move anything. The security big brother waved his hand, and 5 men in black came out, holding up their phones and starting to record. These brothers of mine are all masters of law. If you want to play, we'll play properly by the book. Several other men in black opened a can of surströmming inside the house, placed it behind a fan, and aimed it at the old man at the door. A thick stench, like a 10-year-old latrine, instantly enveloped the old man. The old man covered his mouth and dry heaved, struggling to breathe, and passed out in less than half a minute. The old man's son appeared, shouting for the security big brother to pay up. But as soon as he shouted, a strong, rich smell was sent over by the fan, filling his mouth. He felt dizzy at once and dragged the old man downstairs. When my cousin saw that the father and son had been defeated so quickly, he was displeased. He cursed them for taking money and not doing their job, saying even a dog would wag its tail if you fed it. The old man's son was already dry-heaving uncontrollably, and hearing my cousin scold him, he also got angry. He put the old man down on the grass nearby and started arguing with my cousin. He didn't notice that he had placed the fainted old man right under the water outlet of the first-floor air conditioner. The scorching weather, the fainted old man, the wildly spinning air conditioner, the dripping water from the AC. Not a single drop was missed. It all went into the old man's mouth. This was an old air conditioner, its drainage pipe covered in mold. By the time the old man's son and his cousin finished arguing, the old man had already had his fill. Only then did he remember his father. He took one look and saw the old man's face had turned green. No amount of shouting would wake him. He was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. In the end, due to a bacterial infection in his brain, the old man truly became a vegetable. The old man's son left his father at the hospital and first went to demand compensation from the owner of the air conditioner. He ended up with a face full of pepper spray. Calling the police was useless. Whose air conditioner doesn't leak water? And no one else was seen going over for a drink. Thus, the old man's son, with reddened eyes, turned to his cousin for compensation. The cousin, having not gotten the house, and now being asked for money, flew into a rage. He and the aunt ganged up on the son, 2 against 1, staging a scene of scoundrel versus scoundrel on the street. As a result, the old man's son accidentally hit his head on the curb, resulting in high-level paraplegia. The cousin fled the scene immediately. The aunt was arrested and taken in. The sentence was heavy this time. She wouldn't be getting out for at least 8 or 10 years. Later, the cousin was caught near my home. He was holding a bottle of concentrated acid, his eyes bloodshot. As he was being arrested, he screamed that he would destroy me. In the struggle, the concentrated acid spilled onto his face and into his mouth, corroding his trachea. He couldn't be saved. I went to visit the high-level paraplegic son of the old man. He could now move his upper body slightly, sitting in a wheelchair, basking in the sun. Upon seeing me, he struggled to crawl over and grab me. I kindly told him that I had returned to work at the company and had even been promoted with a raise. Everything before was just an act the company put on to keep me. The old man's son trembled all over, shaking with impotent rage. I told him I'd asked the doctor, and he would be confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life, accompanied by incontinence. Then I left. I took my savings and went to a new city to start a new life. Later, I heard that there was always a person in a wheelchair holding a banner at the entrance of my old company. No one could persuade him to leave, and he didn't believe a word anyone said. The last time he was holding the banner, the wheelchair's brake failed. The chair, within a minute, rolled into the street and was pulled under an unlicensed dump truck. This incident made the news, and the company's reputation plummeted. It went bankrupt within a few months. However, the company's various misdeeds, such as tax evasion, were exposed. The big boss was arrested, along with the high-level executives involved. This included the head of public relations and the head of human resources. Of course, it certainly wasn't me who reported them, because I had already started a new job at a new company and begun a new life. I even ran into the female white-collar worker who was initially going to give the old man water. She thanked me profusely for saving her that day. At that time, she had to call the police and hire an agency to test the mineral water to prove there was nothing wrong with the bottle she offered the old man. Instead, an excessive amount of bacteria and fungi were detected in the old man's broken cup. If she had fed the old man that cup of air conditioner water, she would be in a terrible situation now. She added me on WeChat. I discovered that she was also single. My new life, it seems, is even more worth looking forward to